On my 29th birthday, they handed me an empty plate and laughed at my failures. I didn't scream. I just took the photo, grabbed the keys to the car I paid for, and left. Now the lights are off, and they're begging me to come home. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. I stared at the cake stand. It was a beautiful thing, really, ceramic, white, with a delicate lace pattern around the rim. I had bought it myself 3 years ago for Christmas dinner, the same year I had paid for the turkey, the ham, and the wine. But tonight, on my 29th birthday, the stand was empty. Not just empty of cake, but aggressively empty. It had been wiped clean, polished even, so that it reflected the overhead dining room light with a mocking gleam. "Happy birthday," my brother, Michael, shouted, clapping his hands together like a seal. He was leaning back in my father's old oak chair, a beer in one hand, a beer I had bought yesterday during the weekly grocery run, and a smug grin plastered across his face. Next to him, my younger sister, Isabella, was giggling behind her hand, her phone raised. She was recording. Of course she was recording. This was content. This was funny. "Well," my mother, Patricia, asked from the head of the table. She adjusted her silk scarf, another gift I had purchased, and gestured to the empty stand with a feigned innocence that made my stomach churn. "Aren't you going to blow them out?" There were no candles. There was no cake, just the cold, white ceramic. "I don't understand," I said. My voice sounded small, thinner than usual. I had worked a 10-hour shift before coming here. I had rushed through traffic, hoping, just maybe, that this year would be different. That 29 would mark a shift. That because I had finally landed a steady contract with a major agency, they might respect me. "It's a metaphor, Emma," Michael snorted, leaning forward. "For your love life, for your, everything." "It's a joke, sweetie," Mom added, her voice dripping with that sickeningly sweet tone she used whenever she was twisting a knife. "Don't be so dramatic. We got you a card." She slid a pink envelope across the table. I picked it up. My hands weren't shaking, which surprised me. I felt a strange, cold numbness spreading from my chest to my fingertips. I opened the envelope. The card was generic, something from the dollar store rack. On the front, it had a cartoon cat falling off a fence. Inside, in my mother's swirling, ornate handwriting, it read, "At least you tried." Underneath, Michael had scrawled, "Maybe next year, loser." Isabella had just drawn a smiley face, sticking its tongue out. "See," Isabella giggled, finally lowering her phone but keeping the lens trained on me. "It's funny because you're always trying so hard, Emma. You try to be the big shot designer. You try to date that guy. What was his name? The one who ghosted you? It's just fits." The room seemed to tilt. The air grew heavy, smelling of the pot roast I had put in the slow cooker that morning before I left for work so they would have a warm meal. They were eating the food I made, drinking the beer I bought, sitting in the house where I paid the heating bill, and mocking me for trying. They were waiting for the reaction. That was the game. They wanted me to cry. They wanted old Emma to crumble, to apologize for not having a sense of humor, to run to the bathroom sobbing so they could roll their eyes and say I was too sensitive. They wanted the emotional release of breaking me. But the tears didn't come. Instead, a thought crystallized in my mind, sharp and clear as a diamond. It was a realization so profound it felt like a physical blow. They don't love me, they just love what I provide. I looked at the empty cake stand. I looked at the card. "Okay," I said softly. "Okay," Michael frowned, his smile faltering slightly. "That's it. No lecture. No, I work so hard for this family speech." "No," I said, "no speech." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I stood up, walked over to the empty cake stand, and placed the card right in the center of it. "What are you doing?" Mom asked, her brow furrowing. "Capturing the moment," I said. I snapped a photo. The flash reflected off the white ceramic, illuminating the cruel words, "At least you tried." Then I turned to Michael. Keys. What? The keys to the Honda, I said. My voice was steady, void of any inflection. Give them to me. I was going to go to Brad's later, Michael stammered, looking at Mom for backup. Mom said I could take it. It's not Mom's car, I said. It's in my name, I pay the insurance, I pay the lease. Give me the keys. Emma, stop this, Mom snapped, slamming her hand on the table. You're ruining the end. It was a joke. Can't you take a joke? I took the joke, I said, holding out my hand. I took the photo, now I'm taking the keys. Michael hesitated, but there was something in my eyes, something dead and cold, that made him flinch. He dug into his pocket and slammed the keys onto the table. Fine, take them, you're such a bitch. I swiped the keys. I didn't look at Isabella. I didn't look at the pot roast. I just turned around and walked toward the front door. If you walk out that door, Mom yelled, her voice rising to a shriek, don't you dare think you can come crawling back when you're lonely. You'll ruin your birthday. I opened the door to the cool night air. My birthday was ruined the moment I walked in here, I said. I slammed the door shut behind me, the sound echoing like a gunshot through the neighborhood. The betrayal didn't feel like a heartbreak. It felt like an amputation, painful, shocking, but necessary for survival. The walk to the car was a blur. My heart was hammering against my ribs, not from sorrow, but from adrenaline. It was the fight-or-flight response finally kicking in after 29 years of freezing. I unlocked the Honda CR-V, my car, the one Michael treated like his personal taxi service, and threw my bag into the passenger seat. The interior smelled like stale fast food and cheap body spray. Michael's smell. I rolled the windows down immediately to purge it. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw the living room curtain twitch. Patricia was watching. She was waiting for me to stop at the end of the driveway, to hesitate, to realize I had nowhere to go and turn back. That was the pattern. I would get mad, I would threaten to leave, and then she would guilt me into staying because family sticks together. Not tonight. I shifted into drive and floored it. The tires chirped against the asphalt, a satisfying screech that felt like a scream I couldn't voice. My phone started buzzing before I even made it to the main road. Buzz Michael, buzz Mom, buzz Isabella. I glanced at the screen as it lit up the dark car interior. Mom, you are being ridiculous. Come back inside and cut the roast. It's getting cold. Michael, you know I have that interview tomorrow morning. I need the car. Don't be selfish. Isabella, link to Instagram story. LMAO Emma is literally having a meltdown BC no cake. I didn't reply. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth or typed a word, the dam would break and I would start apologizing. That was my programming. I had been trained like a dog to seek their approval, to beg for scraps of affection. I drove aimlessly for 20 minutes, the suburban streets giving way to the highway. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red. I needed a place to sleep. My apartment lease had ended 6 months ago. A strategic move, Mom had suggested so I could move back home and save money, while actually pouring every cent I earned into fixing the roof and paying off Michael's credit card debt. I was homeless. A homeless freelancer with a decent income, a car full of trash, and a family that hated me. I pulled into a motel parking lot near the interstate. It wasn't the Ritz, but it was far enough away that they wouldn't drive by looking for the car. I checked in, paid cash, and sat on the edge of the stiff mattress. The silence in the room was heavy. I checked my bank account on my phone. The numbers were healthy, barely. I had been funneling so much into the joint account for household expenses that my personal savings were thinner than they should have been at my age. I looked at the transactions from the joint account. Liquor store, $150. Gaming stop, $60. Nail salon, $80. My stomach twisted. They had spent my money on the booze, and the manicure Isabella was tapping against her phone screen while she mocked me. My phone buzzed again, a voicemail from Mom. I pressed play, needing to hear it, needing to fuel the fire that was keeping me warm. Emma, pick up, this isn't funny anymore. Michael is freaking out about tomorrow. You know he gets anxious. You need to bring the car back. We can talk about your feelings. Tomorrow, just come home. We love you, even when you're being difficult. Difficult, I whispered to the empty room. I stood up and went to the window, looking out at the highway. They thought this was about the cake. They thought this was a tantrum about a birthday card. They thought I was punishing them by taking the car for a joyride. They had absolutely no idea what I had actually done. In my bag, tucked into the back of my planner, was a document I had received from the bank 3 days ago. A document I hadn't shown them yet. It was regarding the mortgage renewal on the house. Because of Dad's bad credit before he died and Mom's lack of income, the house wasn't just in her name anymore. To save it from foreclosure 5 years ago, I had co-signed. I was the primary guarantor. But there was a clause, a specific clause, regarding the renewal period which expired tomorrow. If I didn't sign the renewal paperwork by 5:00 p.m. tomorrow, the bank wouldn't just raise the rate. They would call the loan due. They were worried about the car keys. They had forgotten they were living in a house that effectively rested on my shoulders. And I wasn't planning on signing anything. To understand why I didn't just leave sooner, you have to understand Patricia. My mother isn't a villain in a black cape. She's a tragedy in a cashmere sweater, usually one I bought. She has this way of looking at you, eyes wide and brimming with unshed tears, that makes you feel like the cruelest monster on earth for denying her anything. After Dad died, she crumbled, or at least she acted like she did. She stopped cooking, stopped cleaning, stopped working her part-time job at the library. She became the grieving widow, a title she wore like armor. I was 24 then. I had just started my career. I stepped up. I had to. Someone had to pay the electric bill. Someone had to make sure Michael finished high school, he barely did, and that Isabella had prom dresses. "You're the strong one, Emma," Mom would say, patting my hand while I wrote checks for bills I couldn't afford. "I don't know what we'd do without you. You're the glue." I wore that title like a badge of honor. The glue, it made me feel necessary. It made me feel loved. But the glue is just another word for the person who gets stuck cleaning up the mess. Over the last 5 years, the dynamic shifted. It wasn't about survival anymore. It was about entitlement. Michael, now 26, decided he was an entrepreneur. This meant he sat in the basement coming up with app ideas that never launched and buying crypto with money he begged off Mom, money that I had put in her account for groceries. He refused to work a menial job because he was destined for greatness. Isabella, at 22, was just mean. She was pretty, popular, and deeply insecure, which manifested as a constant need to belittle me. If I wore a new dress, she'd ask if it was a hand-me-down. If I got a promotion, she'd ask if my boss was blind. And Patricia, she orchestrated it all. She pitted us against each other. If I complained about Michael not working, she'd sigh and say, "He's sensitive, Emma. Not everyone is as cold and calculated as you." Cold and calculated. That's what she called my budgeting. That's what she called my requests for them to turn off the lights to save electricity. Tonight, sitting in that motel room, the memory of a specific conversation from last week surfaced. I had come home early and overheard them in the kitchen. I had stayed in the hallway, listening. "Emma's talking about moving out again," I heard Mom say. "She can't," Michael laughed. "Who's gonna pay for my data plan?" "Don't worry," Mom's voice was low, conspiratorial. "I told her that her credit score took a hit because of that student loan mix-up. She thinks she can't get an apartment without me co-signing, and I told her I wouldn't do it until she's more stable. She believes anything I tell her about money. She's good at earning it, but she's stupid about how the world works." I had walked away then, heart pounding, feeling sick. I hadn't confronted them. I had gone to my room and checked my credit report. It was spotless. 780. She had lied. She had gaslit me into staying, into thinking I was trapped, just so I would keep funding their lives. That was the moment the seed was planted. The birthday dinner was just the water that made it bloom. I looked at the text from Michael again. I need the car. He didn't need the car for an interview. I knew for a fact he had a date with a girl he'd met on Tinder. He wanted to pick her up in my clean, relatively new SUV instead of taking the bus. I typed a reply, my fingers flying across the screen. Me take an Uber. And use your own card because I just canceled the add-on to my account. I hit send, then I blocked his number. I did the same for Isabella. Then I stared at Patricia's contact. The picture was of us, years ago, smiling at a park. I looked so desperate to please her in that photo. I didn't block her. Not yet. I needed her to receive the message I was about to send the next day. Because tomorrow wasn't just the mortgage deadline. It was also the day the auto draft for the utilities, the internet, and the family cell phone plan was scheduled to hit my bank account. I opened my banking app, select all transfers, cancel. Select autopay, electric, cancel. Select autopay, water, cancel. Select autopay, Verizon family plan, cancel. I watched the little green confirmation checks appear one by one. It was the most satisfying thing I had ever seen. I wasn't just taking the car, I was taking the power, literally. I woke up the next morning to the sound of a housekeeper's cart rattling down the hallway. For a split second, I panicked, not recognizing beige stucco ceiling or the smell of industrial lemon cleaner. Then, the memory of the empty cake stand washed over me, followed immediately by the realization that I was alone. I was alone, and it was glorious. I checked my phone, 47 missed calls. The notifications were a wall of text, a digital scream for attention. Michael, 14 texts, where are the keys? I'm going to lose this job BC of you. Mom is crying. I'm taking the spare key. I smiled. He wouldn't be taking the spare key. I had taken that off his keychain 3 weeks ago when he left it on the counter, knowing eventually he'd lose the main set. I had anticipated his incompetence, I just hadn't anticipated my own rebellion. I showered, dressed in yesterday's clothes, and drove to the nearest coffee shop. I bought a latte and a bagel, my birthday breakfast, and opened my laptop. The first thing I did was change every single password. Email, banking, social media, Netflix, Amazon. I logged out of all devices. Then, I made the call I had been dreading but needing to make for years. I called Mr. Henderson at the bank. He was the loan officer who had handled the refinancing 5 years ago, a kind older man who always asked about my graphic design business. Emma, he sounded surprised. I didn't expect to hear from you. Your mother called earlier. She was quite agitated. She said you were unreachable. I'm fine, Mr. Henderson, I said, keeping my voice professional. I'm just taking some personal time. I'm calling about the mortgage renewal. The deadline is today at 5:00 p.m., correct? That's correct, he said, the shuffling of papers audible through the line. I have the paperwork ready. I just need you and Patricia to come in and sign. The rate is locked, but we need the guarantor's wet signatures. And if I don't sign? There was a long silence on the other end. Emma, if you don't sign, the loan defaults to the variable open rate. Given the current market, your payments would nearly triple. More importantly, the bank has the right to reassess the risk. Without your income guaranteed on the renewal, well, the loan might be called. Foreclosure proceedings would begin within 90 days. I see, I said, taking a sip of my latte. And what if I want to remove my name from the title and the loan entirely? You can't, he said gently. Not without the other party refinancing in their own name to buy you out. And looking at Patricia's current credit profile, she doesn't qualify for a library card, let alone a mortgage of this size. Emma, you are the mortgage. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. That's all I needed to know. Are you coming in? He asked, concern creeping into his tone. No, I said, I'm not. Emma, please understand the consequences. I understand them perfectly. Please note on the file that the primary guarantor has declined the renewal terms. Have a good day. I hung up. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer magnitude of what I had just done. I had just nuked their world. But I wasn't done. The lie Mom had told about my credit score still gnawed at me. She told me I had bad credit. Why? Control, obviously. But specific lies usually cover specific truths. I logged into a comprehensive credit monitoring service, paying the premium fee for the full forensic report. I scrolled past the student loans, paid off, the car lease, current, and the credit cards paid in full. Then I stopped. There was a credit card I didn't recognize. A shop-style rewards Visa issued 3 years ago. The limit was $5,000. The balance was $4,980. The status was past due 60 days. I clicked on the transaction history. Sephora, Nordstrom Rack, Liquor World, online casino. I felt the blood drain from my face. I hadn't opened this card. I had never even heard of this bank. But the billing address, it was our house. And the authorized user. Isabella. My mother had opened a credit card in my name, maxed it out, given it to my sister to use, and then stopped paying it, wrecking my score just enough to make her lie about the apartment seem plausible. I wasn't just a daughter to them. I was a host organism, and they were parasites who had burrowed so deep they thought they were part of the bone. I needed help. I closed the laptop, packed up my bag, and typed a name into my search bar. Sarah Jenkins, family law and fraud. A friend from college had used her when her ex-husband tried to hide assets. I dialed the number. Hi, I need an emergency consultation. I think my mother has committed identity theft against me, and I need to know how to evict my family from a house I technically own. It was 5:15 p.m. when the bomb went off. I was sitting in the living room of an Airbnb I had rented, a small, quiet carriage house on the other side of the city. It had a keypad lock and a high fence. It felt like a fortress. My phone, which I had kept on Do Not Disturb all day, suddenly lit up with a call that bypass. The filter, it was the landline from the house. I had blocked their cells, but I hadn't blocked the home phone. I stared at it. This was it. The deadline had passed. Mr. Henderson had undoubtedly called Patricia to inform her that the renewal had failed and the interest rate was now hovering somewhere around catastrophic. I picked up, "Hello. You selfish, ungrateful little bitch." It wasn't Mom, it was Michael. He was screaming so loud the audio distorted. "Who do you think you are?" he roared. "The bank just called. Mom is on the floor. She can't breathe. Do you want to kill her? Is that it? You want to kill your own mother on your birthday weekend?" "Put her on the phone, Michael," I said calmly. "She can't talk. She's having a heart attack." "If she's having a heart attack, hang up and call 911. If she's not, put her on the phone." There was a scuffle, the sound of the phone being fumbled, and then heavy, ragged breathing. "Emma," it was Mom. Her voice was weak, trembling, the performance of a lifetime. "Emma, why are you doing this? Mr. Henderson said. He said you refused to sign. He said our payment is going up to $3,000 a month. We don't have that kind of money. You know we don't." "I know," I said. "I also know about the shop-style Visa." The silence that followed was louder than Michael's screaming. It was a vacuum, sucking the air out of the line. The ragged breathing stopped instantly. I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice suddenly sharp, the weakness evaporating. "The card ending in 4590, I recited. "Opened 3 years ago, maxed out on makeup and online gambling, in my name, with my social security number. That's a felony, Mom. It's called identity fraud." "I did that for us," she snapped, dropping the act entirely. "We needed things. Isabella needed clothes for her internship. I was going to pay it back. I always pay it back." "You haven't paid it in 60 days, I said. "And you used it to tank my credit score so you could lie to me and keep me trapped in that house paying your mortgage." "It is my house," she shrieked. "I raised you in that house. I gave up my life for you. And this is how you repay me, by counting pennies, by running away because of a joke on a birthday card." It wasn't a joke, I said, feeling a strange, cold clarity. It was the truth. You guys think I'm a loser. You think I'm just a resource to be mined. Well, the mine is closed. You come home right now, she commanded, shifting tactics to pure authority. You come home, you sign that paper, and we will forget you ever had this tantrum. If you don't, I will tell everyone. I will tell your aunt, I will tell the church. I will tell everyone that you abandoned your widowed mother and disabled brother. Michael isn't disabled, I said. He's lazy, and go ahead, tell them. But when you do, make sure you mention the credit card fraud. Because I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow, and if you don't start packing, the bank is going to do it for you. You wouldn't, she hissed. I'm your mother. At least I tried, I said. I hung up. I sat there for a long time, the silence of the airbump wrapping around me. My hands were shaking again, but this time, it felt different. It wasn't the shaking of a victim. It was the shaking of someone who had just fired a heavy weapon for the first time. The recoil hurt, but the target was down. The next 3 days were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Since I refused to answer the phone, they took the war to the public. Isabella posted a TikTok of Mom crying at the kitchen table. The caption read, "My sister stole our car and abandoned our mom with heart problems. Please pray for us. Evil sister family betrayal." It got 4,000 likes in 3 hours. I watched it from my new desk in the airbimb. I saw the comments, "What a monster. Who does that to their mom? Karma will get her." It stung bad. I wanted to reply, to post the screenshots of the credit card statements to explain everything. But Sarah, my new lawyer, had given me strict instructions. Do not engage. Document everything. They are trying to bait you into a public fight to discredit you, Sarah had told me during our consultation, her eyes scanning the credit report I had brought. This isn't just a family dispute, Emma. This is financial abuse, and we have the paper trail to prove it. Sarah was a shark in a silk blouse. She had already drafted a demand letter regarding the stolen car, which Michael still hadn't returned, and an affidavit of fraud for the credit card. We have 2 options, Sarah said. We can file a police report for the identity theft immediately. That will likely result in your mother being arrested. Or we can use it as leverage to get them to agree to a sale of the house so you can recoup your equity and walk away cleanly. I don't want her in jail, I said, hating myself for still protecting her. I just NT out. Then we apply pressure, Sarah said. The pressure came in the form of a legal courier serving them papers at the house the next morning. I wasn't there, but I heard about it. My Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, called me an hour later. Linda had always been the neutral party, or so I thought. Emma, Linda's voice was tight. Your mother just called me. She says you're suing her. She says you're trying to make her homeless. I'm not suing her, Linda. I'm trying to separate my finances from her before she ruins me completely. Did she tell you about the credit card she opened in my name? She mentioned there was a misunderstanding about a card, Linda said dismissively. Emma, she's family. You don't bring lawyers into family matters. You need to go over there and fix this. Michael says the power company sent a disconnect notice today. It's 90 degrees out. You can't let them sit in the heat. Michael is 26, I said. He can get a job and pay the electric bill. I paid it for 5 years. It's his turn. You've changed, Linda said coldly. You used to be such a sweet girl. Now you sound hard. I had to get hard to survive them, I said, and hung up. I blocked Linda too. The circle was shrinking, but the air was getting cleaner. That afternoon, I needed to go to my old coworking space to pick up some files I had left in my locker. I thought I would be safe. It was across town, and they didn't know the code to get in. I was wrong. As I walked out of the building, a familiar figure stepped out from behind a parked van. It was Mom. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her eyes red-rimmed. She wasn't wearing her usual grieving widow costume. She was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. She looked small. Emma, she croaked. I stopped, my hand instinctively clutching my bag where the legal folder was. How did you find me? I tracked your phone, she said. We're on the same family plan, remember? You forgot to turn off the locator. I cursed internally. I had canceled the payment, but the service was still active until the end of the billing cycle. What do you want, Mom? Please, she said, taking a step forward. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked desperate. Please just come home, the lights are off. The food in the fridge is spoiling. He's falling apart. He threw a chair through the window yesterday. That sounds like a police matter, I said, stepping back. He's your brother, she wailed, tears finally spilling over. We are your family, you can't just discard us like trash. We made a mistake with the card. I'm sorry, I'll pay it back. I promise, just sign the renewal. We can refinance later. Just save the house. It's your father's house. She was pulling out the big guns. Dad. It's not Dad's house anymore, I said, my voice shaking slightly. It's a prison. Emma, please. She reached out to grab my arm. I flinched away. No. I opened my bag and pulled out the folder Sarah had given me. I extracted a single document, a copy of the credit card application. Look at this, I said, holding it up. She froze. This is the application. See that signature? It says Emma Clark. But look at the E. It has that little loop at the top. The way you write it, not me. I pulled out another paper. And this is a statement from a witness. The clerk at the Sephora who remembers Isabella using the card and bragging that Mom gave it to her. Sarah found her. She's willing to testify. Mom's face went pale. The sorrow vanished, replaced by a cold, hard fear. You investigated us, she whispered. I protected myself, I corrected. I have everything, Mom. I have the bank records, the forged signatures, the years of transfers. If I give this to the police, you go to prison for fraud. If I give it to the IRS, you go to prison for tax evasion on Dad's life insurance that you never declared. Her mouth opened, then closed. Here is the deal, I said, my voice hardening into steel. You have 1 week to vacate the house. You are going to agree to sell it. The proceeds will pay off the mortgage, the credit card you stole, and the money I put into the renovations. Anything left over you can keep. But if you don't agree, if you try to fight me, or if Isabella posts one more lie about me on the internet, I hand this folder to the district attorney. You can't, she breathed. I'm your mother. Then you should have treated me like a daughter, I said, instead of an ATM. I turned around and walked to my car, the rental I had picked up that morning. I didn't look back, but I heard her scream, a raw, primal sound of someone who realizes they have finally lost control. The deadline I gave her was set to expire on Sunday, but I knew Patricia. She wouldn't go quietly. She would try one last, desperate maneuver to regain control. I just didn't expect her to do it at Aunt Linda's 50th birthday party. It was Saturday night. I had been debated going. But Aunt Linda had texted me earlier in the week, surprisingly gentle, asking me to come. It's a big milestone, Emma. Just come for an hour. No drama, I promise. Against my better judgment, and against Sarah's advice, I went. I wanted to believe that the extended family wasn't entirely poisoned against me. I wanted to believe I still had a place in this clan. The party was at a rented banquet hall. Cheap streamers, a DJ playing 80s hits, and a buffet of lukewarm pasta. When I walked in, the room went quiet. Not silent, but that distinct, hushed murmur of people shifting their attention to the problem. I saw them at the head table. Mom, Michael, and Isabella. They looked united. Smug, even. Mom was wearing a new dress. Michael was drinking a beer. Isabella was whispering something to a cousin. I kept my head high and walked toward Aunt Linda to give her my gift. Emma, Linda smiled, but it was tight. I'm so glad you came. Happy birthday, Aunt Linda, I said, handing her a small box. I can't stay long. Oh, nonsense, Linda said, her grip on my arm tightening. You have to stay for the speeches. Your mother wants to say a few words. My stomach dropped. Ambush. Before I could pull away, the DJ's music cut out. the microphone screeched. Patricia was standing up at the front of the room, tapping the mic. "If I could have everyone's attention," she beamed. The room fell silent. She looked radiant, the grieving widow act replaced by the benevolent matriarch. "I just wanted to thank my dear sister Linda for being such a rock," Mom began. "Family is everything, isn't it? It's the only thing that matters." Murmurs of agreement. "Which is why," she continued, her eyes locking onto me across the room, "it breaks my heart when family loses their way. As many of you know, my daughter Emma has been going through a difficult mental health crisis lately." The room gasped. I felt the blood drain from my face. "She's been confused," Mom went on, her voice trembling with fake emotion. "She's been saying terrible, untrue things. She's abandoned us, but we forgive her. In fact, I have a surprise. I've spoken to the bank and to the family, and we've decided to do an intervention of sorts. Emma, honey, come up here." She gestured to me. Every eye in the room turned. "We have the papers right here," Mom said, holding up a manila envelope. "To sign the house over to the trust so we can manage your finances for you until you get well. It's for your own good, sweetheart. Just come sign and you can come home." It was a masterstroke. Frame my independence as insanity. Frame my financial boundaries as a symptom of a breakdown. Force me to sign away my rights in front of 50 witnesses under the guise of help. I looked around the room. I saw pity in my cousin's eyes. I saw judgment in my uncle's eyes. They all bought it. They all believed Patricia's narrative because it was easier than believing the truth. I felt a fire ignite in my chest. Not anger, clarity. I walked up to the front. The room was dead silent. I stepped up to the microphone stand, right next to Mom. She smiled triumphantly, holding out the pen. "Just sign here, honey," she whispered off mic. "Don't make a scene." I took the microphone instead of the pen. "I'm not signing anything," I said. My voice boomed through the speakers, steady and strong. "Emma, don't," Mom started, reaching for the mic. I stepped back. "I'm not having a mental breakdown, Mom. I'm having a financial awakening." I reached into my purse. I didn't have the full legal folder, but I had the one document that mattered. The one I had saved on my phone and printed out just in case. "You told everyone I was crazy," I said to the room. "You told them I abandoned you, but you didn't tell them why." I held up the paper. "This is a credit card statement," I announced, "for a card opened in my name, without my knowledge, 3 years ago, by my mother." "She's lying," Michael shouted from the table, standing up. "She's off her meds." "I'm not on meds, Michael," I shot back. "But you are on my car insurance, or you were until I canceled it yesterday." I turned back to the crowd. "This card has $5,000 of debt on it, charges for online gambling, liquor, high-end makeup, all shipped to my mother's house, all signed by her or Isabella." "That's not true," Isabella shrieked. "I have the affidavit from the Sephora clerk, Isabella," I yelled over her. "I have the IP addresses for the online casinos. It's all here." I slammed the papers down on the table in front of Aunt Linda. "Read it, Linda," I challenged. "Read the dates, read the signatures, and then tell me I'm the one who needs a conservatorship." Linda looked at the papers. She looked at Mom. Mom's face had gone from triumphant to ash gray. She looked like a cornered animal. "Patricia," Linda asked, her voice shaking, is this true?" "She's making it up," Mom hissed. "She forg." "Edit." "I didn't forge the eviction notice the bank sent you today," I said quietly. That was the final nail. The room went cold. "Eviction?" Michael asked, his voice small. "What eviction?" "The mortgage renewal failed," I said, looking directly at my brother. "Because I refused to sign it. Because I refused to let you guys bleed me dry for another 5 years. The bank called the loan. You have 30 days to get out." Michael turned to Mom. "You said you fixed it. You said you talked to Mr. Henderson." I was going to," Mom stammered, "if she just signed the trust." "You were going to use my money to fix your mess one last time," I said. "But the well is dry, Mom." I looked at the crowd. I'm sorry to ruin the party, Aunt Linda, but I'm done being the scapegoat. I'm done being the bank. And I'm done being the daughter you all laugh at. I dropped the mic. It didn't make a cool sound, it just thudded against the carpet. But the silence that followed was deafening. I walked out. This time, nobody tried to stop me. The fallout was swift and brutal. Aunt Linda read the papers. Then she called the other aunts. The family tribunal that usually judged me turned its gaze on Patricia. Faced with hard evidence of fraud and the impending foreclosure, the family support evaporated overnight. Without my income, and with the extended family refusing to bail them out, the house of cards collapsed. Patricia tried to fight the eviction, but Sarah, my lawyer, was relentless. We offered them a deal. I wouldn't file criminal charges for the identity theft if they agreed to a quick sale of the house and released me from all liability. They signed, they had no choice. The house sold 2 months later. After the bank took their cut and the debts were settled, including the fraudulent credit card, which was paid off from Mom's share of the equity, there was almost nothing left. Mom moved into a small, one-bedroom apartment in a bad part of town. Isabella had to get a job at a call center to help pay rent. Michael, stripped of his entrepreneurial delusions and my car, was forced to move in with a friend, sleeping on a couch. As for me, I was sitting in my new apartment, a loft downtown with exposed brick and huge windows that let in the morning light. It was mine. The lease was in my name. The furniture was mine. The quiet was mine. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Michael. Michael, hey, I know things are weird, but I have this new business idea. I just need like $500 for the startup costs. I promise I'll pay you back double. I stared at the screen. A year ago, I would have sent it. I would have sighed, complained, and sent it, hoping it would buy me a week of peace. Now, I just laughed. A real, genuine laugh that bubbled up from my chest. I didn't reply. I didn't block him either. I just deleted the thread. I walked over to the kitchen counter. There, sitting on a stand, was a cake. A small, chocolate ganache cake I had bought for myself to celebrate landing a huge new client. Next to it was a card I had written to myself. To Emma, it read, "You didn't just try, you won. I lit the candle, I made a wish." And I blew it out.